Welcome back to another episode of the Cognitive Discourse. Welcome back, and I thank you for continuing to listen. If this is your first time here, welcome. Today I wanted to talk about a post that I came across. Again, me on social media, always coming across these crazy posts. And I read something, and I wanted to share it with you guys and kind of share my opinion on said posts. And kind of want to see where you guys are at. Maybe this is my outlook is something new that you've never thought of, and maybe it can help change your outlook on this particular topic. Or maybe you have your own way of doing things, and if you do, share your opinion down in the comments with me. Let me know, engage with me. So let me first read the post, and then I'll give you my comments. So the post said, You loaned $3,000 to your friend last year, and since then, he or she refuses to pay you back, which has really deteriorated your friendship. You beg him or her to just pay the $1,000 and forget the rest because you are in a financial crisis. Your friend then says he or she can only give you $500 since that's all he or she has. You felt like you had no other option but to accept. So you eventually gave him or her your account details, and they send you the amount directly to your bank. You woke up the next morning, you checked your account, and you had $5,000 in there. You kept staring at the screen in disbelief, but it was indeed $5,000. You grabbed your phone, and you found 50 missing calls from your friend, and an additional 20 text messages begging you to transfer back $4,500 since he only meant to send you the $500, and mistakenly added an extra zero. What are you going to do? And then it gave three options. 1, send back $4,500. 2, take the full $3,000, and then basically send back what's left. Or option 3, keep the entire $5,000. So I did respond to this, and I didn't actually save my response, but I'm gonna leave my opinion on this anyway. But there's kind of a lot. There's a lot of choices here. My opinion on this kind of eliminates this hassle altogether. Now, reading this, you could take it multiple ways. The person said that they can only afford to give you $500, and then they turn around and give you $5,000. So obviously they're sitting on some extra money. So it's almost to the point where you're like, well, why don't you just pay back the $3,000 that you owe me, and instead of just telling me the $500. So it can ultimately destroy a relationship if you're having to play these type of games with a friend. So my outlook on it is a little bit different, and the reason why I have this outlook is because I've come across these situations with friends before. I'm not friends with certain people because of situations like this on their end. My outlook is always a little bit different, and then I have some friends that understand this, and I kind of lived this way and didn't really understand that I lived this way until I was around somebody who also lived this way, and they broke it down, and I was like, you know what, that's kind of how I live it too, and I've just made more of a conscious decision to remember that. So the way I would approach this situation is when it comes to loaning money to people, I've never really been in a position where I could do that. Financially, growing up, I've always since I've been on my own and had a family, I kind of always just been in a position where I have enough money to cover my bills and have a little extra for savings. But I have been in situations where I've had friends that needed money, and there were times in my life where I was in a good position financially, and I could afford to loan money. Now, the thing is I typically don't. I use the word loan very, very loosely. If I loan you money, in my mind, I've given you money. I'm not loaning it to you. I'm giving you money with the hope that you will repay me, but it's not a necessity, and it's not going to break my friendship with you. If you come to me asking for money and I give you money, I'm trusting your word. But I'm also not trusting it to the point that I'm going to allow it to break our friendship. I only give money if I can afford to give it. I think that's the issue with a lot of people. Why these situations kind of happen, or they just have that whole mentality, well, it's the principle. And for me, I'm like, no, if you come to me and say, hey man, can I borrow $100? I'll pay you next week. if I have the $100 to give you, I'm gonna give you that $100. And in my mind, if I see it, if you're a man of your word or woman of your word, and you say, hey, I'm gonna give you the $100 back next week, cool. If you give it back to me, awesome. If you don't, I'm not gonna make a fuss about it, because I gave you that $100 knowing that I can afford to lose it. So in my mind, when I give money to people, if they ask and they're like, hey man, can I borrow $100? I'll pay you next week. Sure. If I have it, I'll give it. If I don't have it, then I'll say, no, sorry. I don't have the money. But if I have the money and I've taken the initiative to pay you the money and say, yes, here you go. Here's the $100. Regardless if you tell me, I'll get you next week or not, I'll leave it at that, because everybody gets a chance. I understand everybody falls on hard times and everybody needs a handout every now and then to kind of help them get through whatever situation it is. I've been in those situations, and I've had people who have extended their hand and offered help to me, and I'm forever grateful for that. So yeah, when I give money to someone, I'm giving it to you with the mindset that I'm not going to get that money back, but I only give it if I can afford to lose it. So in my mind, when I'm giving you $100, I've lost that $100. Now, just because I do that doesn't mean I forget. So if you tell me, hey man, I'll give you $100 back next week, I'll remember that. And then that's on you as an individual to follow up with that. I'm not going to follow up. I'm not going to follow you. I'm not going to chase you around. I'm not going to ask you about it. If you decide to give it back to me, then great. If you came to me that following week and said, hey man, I really appreciate you loaning me the $100. Here's the $100 I told you I'd give you back. Thank you. Then we're good. And now I know I've built that honesty relationship with you, that I know that, hey, when you're in need, and if you ever need help again, if I can afford to help you, I will, because I know that I will see that return. Because my mindset is always like, if I loan you money and you don't pay me back, if you come to me again and ask me, it's going to be a no. That's the only time I'll ever throw that situation back into your face. It's not even really throwing it back in your face. It's just being honest. If I loaned you money, you tell me I'll pay you back, and you never pay me back, and then some time goes by and you think I forgot, and you come up to me and say, hey man, I'm in rough times again. Do you mind if I borrow some money? It's going to be a flat out no. Because again, I'm not in it to lose money. I'm not just giving away free money. So everybody gets a chance with me. If you ask for money and I loan it to you and you do pay it back, then I will be more willing to give you money again later on down the line if you hit hard times again. And then if you don't pay me back, well then, again, I don't expect you to ask me for money again. And if you do, then it would be a quick no. And if they're saying, well, why not, man? I'm in rough time. Well, you owe me money from the last time. And, again, I'd never brought it up because, that's not my responsibility to remember that. That's on you. I've been in those situations before where I haven't been paid for almost 10 years after loaning somebody money. And then they basically their argument was, well, why didn't you tell me? I would have paid you. Why didn't you bring it up? That's because it's not important. I don't let stuff like that bother me. But again, if I come to you and I hit hard times and I've loaned you money in the past and you've never paid back, and then I need the favor returned and I borrow money from you, don't hassle me about it. That's a quick way to really also get me, I hate using the word, but quote unquote triggered, to really kind of give you a negative response. Because again, I don't bring up the past unless I'm pushed to a point where I have to. And then people want to play this card of like, well, I didn't remember, man, or I thought I did, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, man, we never were straight on that situation. And again, you may be listening to this and think that that's a miscommunication factor or whatnot, but at the end of the day, if you're coming to me looking for some help and I offer help to you, then it's on you to remember to return the favor or pay that debt back. I'm not going to follow you around. I'm not going to hold your hand. You're not a child, and I'm not your parent. So that's my outlook on it. It might be a little harsh. And then again, if I'm answering the question that's given with the the answers that were given, which is send 45 back, you take your cut and give it back, or keep the 5,000. In that aspect, it would all depend on kind of where I'm at with that person. It would have to be a discussion with that person, because again, it's like, obviously you had the money to pay back. You chose not to, so you obviously just weren't willing to pay back the money. And again, that's a huge amount of money. I would never loan out that much kind of money to begin with. That's just me personally. And regardless of how cool I think you are, how close we are, going over $1,000 is a little steep for me. Now, if I was very wealthy and well-to-do, maybe my mindset would change a little bit about that. But again, I'm not just handing out money to everybody. I'm willing to help people that I'm close to. But yeah, I think ultimately the takeaway from this, and if you're listening to this, I think the takeaway would be, don't loan money if you can't bear to part ways with it. It's something I'm trying to get my mom in on. My mom has a tendency to loan family money, and it never ends well. And so I kind of learned from that. Growing up, my mom had, she made really good money when I was growing up. When I was in my early to mid teenage years, my mom worked her ass off, but she made good money. She was making six figures, and we lived fairly comfortably. And, the funny thing is that's when family was around the most. And they would ask my mom for help financially. And my mom, very old school Mexican mentality, like family comes first. And it's made me a little jaded towards family. It's made me a little jaded towards people in general. But my mom never questioned. She was just like, yeah, how much do you need? And my mom would give it to him. And family would be like, cool, man, I'll pay you back as soon as I can, or something like that. And my mom always had this mentality of like, if I'm loaning you money, to show a sign of good faith is like, even if you can't pay it all up front, $5 here, $5 there, $20 here, $20 there, just showing that you're trying to pay it off, would keep her off your ass, basically. And I never liked that approach. I never really liked that approach. And the reason why is because I saw what happened between her and family. My mom would reach out and be like, hey man, are you going to try to start paying towards that debt, or what's going on? And a lot of times the family would try to flip it on her. And that happened quite frequently. My mom went to the extent of buying one of my cousins a car. And he completely used her, was living with my mom and got a car from her, and, basically never paid her. But she never got paid back for any of that stuff. And it frustrates me because I would tell her, why are you putting yourself in that situation? Don't do that. Yeah, even if you can't afford to give out that money, give out that money with the expectation that you're not going to get it back. If you're expecting to get it back, then do not give it. Plain and simple. You can't trust people. And I've learned over the years that you definitely can't trust family. Families are the worst when it comes to that. They're quick to stab you in the back and turn on you, and use family as an excuse. And that's the thing that really pisses me off, is that they would cause these fights. They talk shit. They turn other family members against my mom, and then as time progressed, they would sit there and try to get a hold of my mom, and then my mom would kind of blow them off like, no, fuck y'all owe me money, and you made me look like the bad guy in this situation. And then they would always pull that card like, oh, well, we're family. We gotta, we're family regardless. We're blood and blah. And it's a cop out. It's like, no, fuck you. You essentially stole money from somebody, and then you try to play them like the bad guy. Like, no, it's not cool. So to avoid all that situation to begin with, like I simply just think that do not give money unless you're willing to part with it, and you're willing to come to the terms that you'll probably never see that money again. But if you do, and those people do that borrow from you, do give you the money back, keep that in the back of your mind and know that those people can be trusted. And that type of person, I'll never second guess loaning them money if they're ever in a situation again. And that's how we all should live our lives, plain and simple. I don't know, man. People are just goofy. People are really, really goofy. And, my mom never really learned from her mistake. Again, she had the same situation happen to her with her grandkid. And I told her flat out, and then that's the thing. That's the thing people don't understand about family, friends, close friends that are almost like family. There becomes this almost lax comfort with each other. And, that happened with my little nephew. He basically was coming around. We didn't see him much when he was growing up. He was out of the state. He was in a different state. But when he moved back down to San Antonio, he came down here, and he was from when I met him, he grew up to be a really nice dude, and I had a lot of respect for him. I thought he had grown up to be a pretty decent human being, and he was coming around a lot, and he was coming and seeing he was watching my kids grow up. My daughter, I don't think he's ever met my son, but he was watching my daughter grow up, and he was always coming over and visiting. And my mom really liked it because she didn't really get to see her oldest grandchild that much, and now he was in town, and so he was coming by and seeing his grandma, and it was nice for my mom. She got to see her first grandchild, and after not seeing him for so many years. And one night, of course, he borrowed some money from my mom, and my mom came to me and she asked me, your nephew called and he wants to borrow some money from me, and what do you think? And I flat out told her, I was like, if you're coming to me, you should already know what the answer is. Because if you were not second guessing it, you would have just gave him the money, no hesitation. But obviously there's a reason, because you're coming to me and asking me, and you already know what my answer is going to be. No, don't do it. And she's like, but he's my grandson. I was like, I understand that. But I also know how you are. Are you loaning him $100 or are you giving him $100? Ask yourself that. If you're willing to give him $100, then give him $100 and leave it at that. If you're going to loan him $100, then loan him $100 and make sure that y'all both understand that that money is going to be paid back. But do not harass him about it, because it will ruin your relationship. If you want my honest opinion, I would tell him no, because again, you're not in a place financially to loan out $100. You're not in that position right now. And if he can't understand that, then that's on him. Of course, she didn't listen to my advice. She loaned him $100, and, well, it's been probably 5 years, maybe? Let's see. No, about 3 or 4 years. It's been about 3 or 4 years, because it was when I was at my old place, and I've been at this new place for going on almost 3 years now. And yeah, he stopped coming around. He stopped ignoring her text messages, stopped ignoring her calls, and it just, for me, I wasn't so much mad at my nephew as I was disappointed. And if you're listening to this right now, man, if you feel like I've outed you, I'm not sorry. Like, I was very disappointed in you, man. I had way more respect and higher hopes for you, that you'd be a man of your word, because again, you did tell her that you would pay her back, and you never did. And instead, you went the wuss route and you started avoiding her. You avoided the calls, and you couldn't face up like a man and have a discussion. So if you are listening to this, understand that I am very disappointed in you. But you can always change that by you making the attempt to reach out to your grandma. Somebody who loves you dearly and didn't have the money to give you and was warned by me not to give you money, still did it out of the kindness of her heart, because you are her grandchild. And she did it because she didn't want to see you go without. And so there's been a lot of those situations. And again, you have to... I've lost friends because of it. I had a friend that, I did the same thing for him. I loaned him money back in the day when I had money to give, and he was in a situation where he needed money. I gave him money. I didn't even question it. He came up to me, and I could tell he was nervous and shy about asking me. He swallowed a lot of pride to ask me, and he was scared to ask me. And I know that feeling. I understand that feeling. And when he asked me, my response was, how much do you need? he told me, whatever you can give. And I said, well, 160 do. And he's like, yeah, man, that's perfect. I gave him that money without ever second guessing it, without hesitation. I gave him the money. And we never had an agreement that he was going to pay me back in a certain time frame. If anything, he said, I'll pay you back when I can. I said, cool, man, no worries. I said goodbye to that money, thinking I would never see it again. And that's why I gave it to him. Had I needed it, I would have told him flat out, hey, man, I kind of don't have the money right now, and the money I do have, I need it for other things, but, my apologies. I think that's the problem with a lot of people, is that some people are either too afraid to say no, or I don't know. I don't understand the mentality of like holding something like that over somebody's head. Because like I said, I gave the money. I was close to the dude. He was like a family. He was like a brother to me. You know what I mean? And so I gave him the money with no hesitation, no obligation to pay me back. If you're gonna pay me back, great. And I never forgot about it. Almost 10 years later, I was in a position where I was struggling. And because, like I said, we looked at each other, or at least on my end, I thought we looked at each other like family. We were like brothers. I was in a position where I needed financial help. And so, although he never paid me back, I felt that because we had this understanding of this brotherhood, that I helped him and he was down. And now that I'm in a situation that I'm down and he's not, he's financially in a good position, I thought I'd ask him for some money. Like, can you hit me back with some cash now? Because I'm in a situation where I need it. And the original conversation, there was no hesitation, which was great. He gave me the money and, we were good. And he gave me a little bit more than what I had given him. It was $300 to be exact. It's almost double. And, yeah, like I was in a position where I was trying to get back on my feet, and, now I have kids and stuff, and, he started getting to a point where he was bugging me about it. And it's like, hey man, and I gave him a time frame of when I would try to pay him back. And he allowed that money to get into the middle of our friendship by constantly bringing it up when we had already established that, hey man, you'll get your money in this time frame. I had given him a time frame. And he felt like I was trying to duck and dodge him. He felt like I was trying to avoid him. And when I was just trying to be like normal friends with him, and hang out like we used to, because we had stopped hanging out, I started to feel like he was holding it over my head. He says he wasn't, but I feel like it was. So again, there was a situation where money got involved, and it kind of hurt my feelings because, again, I gave him money without the expectation of it being paid back. And again, that's just where we had different mindsets when it comes to loaning money. So everybody's different. And I hope that the way I think may help others to kind of think that way as well. If you're going to loan money, instead of using that term loan it, have the mindset of like, can I afford to lose this money? It's an investment that may not pay back. You know what I mean? Because you may run into somebody who pays you back when they say they're going to pay you back. You may have somebody that's like, hey man, I really appreciate you helping me when I needed it. Here's your money back and then some. And they may pay a little bit of interest on it. But you can't expect that. I guess that's overall my point in this whole thing is, if you're going to give money to people and you're going to help people out, don't expect it back, and sure as hell don't expect it back with interest. Just be willing to understand that there's a possibility that you won't see that money again. And ask yourself that from now on when people ask you money. First, can I financially afford this? And then 2, can I financially afford to give away this money? And again, you'll get to find out who your friends are. You can find out more on who you can trust when it comes to money and stuff, man. Like, because because I think characteristics really play into that when it comes to that. And then, you see them from a business standpoint about things. Those kind of, those align a little bit. But yeah, I don't want to out too many people out here. I try not to say anybody's names here, but it was just an interesting article that I read, and I figured, or not an article, but a post that I had read, and I figured, hey man, maybe I'll bring it up to the listeners and see what you guys have. So leave me comments, man. Let me know if you agree with what I said, if you disagree with what I said, if you have a different outlook on how you approach situations like that. Are you somebody who loans money out a lot? Are you somebody who's borrowed money and don't want to pay it back? Do you have your reasons why you haven't paid back? But yeah, become part of the conversation, man. We do have a Facebook group. Join the Facebook group. It's just called The Cognitive Discourse. Find us in the search bar and add us on Instagram. And we also have a YouTube. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this particular episode. I'm interested in reading other people's opinions. If you'd like to contact the show directly, you can send me an email at cognitive-discourse-podcast@gmail.com. That's cognitive-discourse-podcast@gmail.com. No the. Yeah, and if you have any questions or any kind of particular topic you want me to cover, you can send it through that email as well. But I definitely want to kind of start trying to get more people involved, and I want to get my listeners involved in the show. I'm still going to be reaching out, trying to get some more guests. This winter blast that hit us really kind of derailed me a little bit, so I'm trying to play catch up on a few things. The YouTube and the streaming aren't really lined up right now. They kind of got derailed, but I'm slowly trying to get back into it and trying to get back on guesting. I did a circuit for a while where I was guesting on other podcasts, so trying to kind of help grow the podcast a little bit via other people's podcasts, but I'm also still trying to find interesting people to bring on. So if you feel like you're one of those people and want to sit down and have an interesting conversation with me, and want to share some ideas and have a little dialogue, don't hesitate to reach out. Right now I've gotten better at doing the remote thing, so we can always do a remote interview. We don't have to be in the same room, which is great. Technology is awesome. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. And as always, enjoy your Friday. Have a great weekend and stay safe. And until next time.